I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about Khamzat Chimaev rips UFC middleweight champion Alex Pereira for suggesting he turned down a fight at UFC 283. This is what Khamzat Chimaev said about the middleweight champion Alex Pereira. Quote, fake belt, fake coat, fake fighter, unquote. Wow. Okay, this is very important because it says UFC welterweight contender, right? Khamzat Chimaev has responded to UFC middleweight champion Alex Pereira. Chimaev has been out of the octagon since a submission win versus Kevin Holland at a catchweight fight in September 2022. However, Chimaev wasn't originally supposed to face the Trailblazer at UFC 279. He was originally supposed to face Nate Diaz. However, the fight was scrapped on, was it on weigh-in day or was it the day before? Yeah, the fight was obviously scrapped on the weigh-in day when Chimaev badly missed the welterweight limit. He came in at about 177 pounds or something like that. That was supposed to be the main event. Chimaev versus Nate Diaz, 279. And then Nate Diaz ended up fighting Tony Ferguson, and Chimaev ended up fighting. Nate Diaz fought Tony Ferguson at welterweight, and Chimaev fought Kevin Holland at a catchweight fight. Following the event, the UFC and Dana White indicated that a move up to 185 pound for Chimaev was likely. That seemed to make sense, right? Although, unfortunately, I would say they have since targeted Chimaev to face Kobe Covington at welterweight, right? But the Chimaev has another fight in mind. Okay, this is interesting. Over the last few weeks, the welterweight, they still keep calling him a welterweight fighter, has called for a clash with UFC middleweight champion Alex Pereira. For Pereira's part, the Brazilian has stated he was down to fight Chimaev on the recent episode of the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Pereira stated he stated that he offered to fight Chimaev at 205 pounds light heavyweight. I don't know. I know why, but I understand why Chimaev would say no to that. Pereira offered to fight Chimaev at light heavyweight, 205 pounds, at UFC 283 in Rio de Janeiro in January, 2 months after Pereira beat Israel Adesanya to become the middleweight champion. He's offering to fight Chimaev at 205 pounds in January. The middleweight champion stated that the bout would have to take place at light heavyweight, as he wouldn't be able to make the middleweight limit with such little time. Wow. Remember, that fight ended in the 5th round, so I'm surprised that he could fight anybody 2 months after fighting Israel Adesanya to the 5th round. That is, no matter what weight cut it is, I'm just surprised he's not suspended. Not suspended, but, not that he's still able to fight anybody too much. That's surprising. He's a monster. Pereira is a monster. However, the newly crowned middleweight champion, Pereira, also alleged that the fight won't happen, as, quote, that, now this is the alleged part, that allegedly Chimaev turned down the bout. Alex Pereira, UFC middleweight translator, stated, quote, so Khamzat Chimaev said about the December 10th, but he was suspended, right? That I didn't know Chimaev. Why was Chimaev suspended and Alex not suspended? Alex did post this week off of, I think, a Chinese movie about this guy just goes and challenges people, but that's not the strong one and the one he cannot fight. I don't understand what I just read, so I'm just going to move on. I have no idea. Maybe I read it wrong. He continued, the Chinese movie? What? Chimaev was suspended in a Chinese movie? What the hell just happened in the last statement? Okay, maybe this statement we can understand what he's saying. Quote, knowing that Alex went to his manager and said, look, I just did a hard fight I did a hard weight cut. I even say hard fight. He said it's the weight cut. It wasn't the fight. I did a hard weight cut. Everybody knows I cannot make the weight for this, but he said tell the UFC. But Pereira says tell the UFC I will challenge Chimaev to fight me at 205 pounds at Rio UFC. What is it? 285 or something like what is it? 283 I believe. 283 UFC 283 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But Chimaev didn't want it. Wow, okay. Now Chimaev has responded on social media and he doesn't seem pleased. Obviously, he wouldn't be so pleased. Let's see what happens here. Responding to a post regarding Alex Pereira's comments, Khamzat Chimaev ripped the middleweight champion for stating that he turned down the clash while he didn't outright state that he declined the matchup. That's okay. That's basically the story. Here's where it goes. Respect to MMA fighter for not just tagging random fighters, but hold on, did they tag random fighters? Maybe they did, but maybe in their original post they didn't. They said in their original post, Alex Pereira claims he asked to fight Khamzat Chimaev at 205 pounds in January. This is what they were quoting from the MMA Hour during the live interview. They didn't tag Chimaev in that post, right? Obviously, he's gonna see it but they weren't trolling, just tagging random fighters, or not random fighters, just tagging every fighter during an interview. But they did tag Alex Pereira, but they didn't tag Chimaev. But Chimaev still responded. He has the emoji with the hand over his face, and he says, WTF, okay? And then his next quote was, I asked them about this fight in Brazil, fake belt, fake coach, fake fighter. Wow, okay, unquote. So I don't know what's going on here. There's like so much, there's like a lot of moving pieces. There's so many moving pieces in this story. The first thing we have to obviously talk about is the elephant in the room is Israel Adesanya. Now, Israel Adesanya, respect to him, he's not stepping in front of this. I don't know why it seems like he's not really calling for a rematch versus Pereira. And the UFC, if this continues, I would not be surprised if the UFC just skips over Israel Adesanya and books Khamzat Chimaev to face Alex Pereira for the middleweight championship, because they just have so much smoke. Obviously, the news and social media is covering it. Israel Adesanya is just kind of sitting back. He's not really saying anything. Maybe he's been guaranteed a rematch versus Alex Pereira. But listen, Alex Pereira is 3-0 in combat sports versus Israel Adesanya, right? So I think if this does continue enough, right, Chimaev doesn't want to go back down to welterweight. He missed weight in his last fight. The UFC probably does not want to put Chimaev in a main event or a co-main event versus Colby Covington if he's going to miss weight, and he's talking all of this stuff about going up to middleweight. It seems, I would say right now from all of this, Chimaev is number 2. If there's like a plan A, a plan one, first plan would be plan 1A would be Israel Adesanya, but I think plan 1B is Khamzat Chimaev to fight Alex Pereira next for the middleweight championship. Like I said, we're not seeing too much from Israel Adesanya on the social media page these days. Maybe obviously he does engage in it, but if Alex Pereira goes to the UFC and says, listen, I defeated Israel Adesanya 3 times already. Yes, only 1 time in the UFC, but I've already beat him 3 times. 2 of our fights literally had to be stopped by the referee. I've knocked him out cold, and the referee had to save him in the 5th round of our last fight. I want to fight Chimaev next, right? That's the biggest fight I could possibly get. Chimaev has been talking crazy, right? Let's see if he's really about that life. A lot of other people are saying that Chimaev will beat Alex Pereira. Not many people are saying Israel Adesanya is going to beat him. I don't hear that talk. Since Alex Pereira defeated Israel Adesanya. I don't hear many people are saying. Well, some people are saying that they had Israel Adesanya winning on the fight card, on their cards heading into the fifth round. But that doesn't matter when you get finished in the fifth round, right? So if everything continues like this, if these two keep talking crazy at each other and say, hey, I want to fight you at this weight, or I want to fight you in Brazil, I'm willing to fight you in Brazil, I'm willing to fight you here, I would not be surprised if in 2023 Chimaev challenges Alex, or not 2023 that Chimaev challenges that. I would not be surprised if the next fight the UFC makes is Alex Pereira versus Khamzat Chimaev for the middleweight championship, right? I literally would not be surprised. Now, let's talk about another thing in the story, that the 205-pound weight. Now, I'm agnostic, so I'm going to give you both sides of the argument here. Why would the middleweight champion, right, challenge a welterweight contender at 205? Right, like, I don't think we've ever seen that before, right? That's kind of crazy. Now, one, obviously, Alex Pereira is a very, very big boy. It takes a lot to cut down to 185 pounds. So he has I wouldn't say he has problems cutting down to 185 pounds, but he's probably not trying to cut down 185 pounds every 2 months. So he offered to fight Chimaev at 205 pounds, not for his belt, but just because he's just not trying to cut down to middleweight, right? If the fight's gonna happen in January of next year, right? Obviously 2 months after he defeated Israel Adesanya, he's not gonna try to cut down to the middleweight limit. I think he comes into fight night 220 pounds. I may be wrong about that. But Alex Pereira is the middleweight champion, and he fights at like 210, maybe 220 pounds. I know he fights at least 200 pounds, right? I know that for sure. So he's a very big boy. Now, the other side of the argument is, if I'm Chimaev, why would I want to fight the middle? If I'm a welterweight, right? If I'm a welterweight and we have a middleweight calling me out, why would the middleweight call me out for 205 pounds? It literally makes no sense. What would Chimaev get for defeating the middleweight champion, right, at 205 pounds? Nothing, right? It's a good win, right? And I'm not saying he shouldn't take the fight. Maybe he should take the fight, defeat him at 205 pounds, and then say, hey, now the next fight has to be for your belt. That's an easy way to do it. But if I'm Chimaev, say, hey, listen, we don't have to fight in January why do we have to fight in January, right? We could fight in March, we could fight in April, but I want it to be for a belt. Put the belt on the line and make the fight. So both sides, I'm making an argument for. I don't disagree with Pereira. I don't think he should have challenged Chimaev at UFC 283 in Rio de Janeiro for his middleweight championship after going 5 rounds versus Israel Adesanya for the first time in his career, to go down, to go 5 rounds in a fight and then 2 months later come back and fight Chimaev. No, I don't think that's a great idea for Alex Pereira. So I respect the fact that he's like, listen, I'll fight this guy, but I'm not trying to cut all that weight to go down there. And I also respect Chimaev saying, like, dude, I'm a welterweight. Why? Like, you're calling me out to go up, 35 pounds, right? Like, that's, to me, that's just crazy, right? You're the middleweight champion. You're telling me, like, hey, let's not even fight in your division. Let's go a weight club. Let's go 20 pounds above your weight division. What? No. So both fighters, I get it. Both of them are saving face, and I think both of them are correct in this instant, right? Pereira is saying, like, hey, if you want to fight me, right, and you want to fight me in January, we could have the fight, but it has to be a light heavyweight, because I'm not going to cut, all the weight to go back to middleweight after 2 months having a 5-round fight. And if I'm Chimaev, I totally agree with him. Like, no, I'm not going to fight you at 205 pounds. There's nothing for me to get from that. Right? I don't, if I'm going to fight you, if I'm going to fight a UFC champion, I'm going to fight a UFC champion for their belt. So both sides I respect. I think both sides are saving face. I think both sides are trying to make this fight. So my point is that Israel Adesanya, listen, he could have been guaranteed this. He could have been guaranteed that. The UFC loves to see stuff like this. Social media covering these fighters building up fights on their own, not waiting for the UFC promotion to try to put words in their mouths. These two fighters clearly don't like each other. These two fighters clearly want to see each other. And I think we're going to see Chimaev and Alex Pereira fight in 2023. So much going on in this story. A pretty fun story. A little bit of UFC matchmaking. I don't know if Chimaev, is he a bad guy now? Is it because he was booed in his last fight? I don't know if he's a bad guy now. But that would be a great fight. A lot of people have been saying that Chimaev would easily defeat Alex Pereira, and he would take Chimaev would take Alex Pereira down and basically submit him. So I think if I'm the middleweight champion, I'm Alex Pereira, I'm reading all of this crazy talk online and hearing everybody saying this stuff. I'm just like, dude, this guy, if Chimaev wants to fight me, I'll fight that guy. Not me. I'm just saying if I was Alex Pereira. But fun story. Also, let me know your opinion of this story. So much going on. We didn't even talk about the UFC we didn't even talk about the UFC welterweight division, right? There's so much drama going on in almost all of these divisions. We'll see what happens in 2023, but I'm going to be here for all of it. I got to be honest. I love this stuff. I love when fighters make fights basically on their own. I love when fighters take promotion on their own, not wait for the UFC to try to make some like fake beef. These two fighters literally, clearly, I don't know if they respect each other. They probably do. Obviously, they definitely respect each other, but they clearly want to fight, and they want to see who's the better fighter. And hopefully we get to see that fight between Chimaev and Alex Pereira in 2023. I'm Jason, UFC. Today we had a fun story. Like, this is a fun story, man. You know, some stories you have like a bad guy, you have a good guy. I felt like both of these guys in this story came out 100% looking fine, and no one should be like, oh no, Alex Pereira looks better or Chimaev looks better. I see arguments from both sides. Today we have a story about Khamzat Chimaev rips Alex Pereira for suggesting he turned down a fight at UFC 283. Quote, this is what Chimaev is saying about Pereira. Fake belt. I don't know why he said that. A fake coach and a fake fighter. God, I love this. I really got to be honest. I love this story. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the $1 donation button. And please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.